something is happening in Mexico. There are protests underway. The media is reporting that these protests are led by disgruntled Gen Z Mexicans that are upset with the cartel. But is there more to this story? Is it possible that we could be witnessing another color revolution taking place? Now, you know, I covered this a while back in regards to Indonesia and also Nepal. Brian Burlatek came onto the show and explained that these were color revolutions that were taking place, meaning that it was backed and funded by Western powers in order to implement some type of regime change in those countries. I'm going to show you both sides. We have commentary. I'm going to show you from Derek Broze, who is in Mexico, who is giving his opinion about what is happening. And we're also going to see commentary here from Danny Haifong, as well as Brian Burlatek and Max Blumenthal and some others that feel that this is a color revolution. Let's go ahead and get started with this clip here from Fox News. Claudia Sheinbaum, who is the president in Mexico, remember, she is more of a left, right? Like, so she's a left politician. She's been very vocal against Donald Trump. So is this really about cartels, or is it possible that Western powers are trying to overthrow the government in Mexico? Let's get into this video here.
The president of Mexico is furious. She's calling Mexican Senator Lili Tellez a traitor for coming on Fox Noticias with me a few days ago and saying this. Listen.
The help from the United States to fight the cartels in Mexico is absolutely welcome, and that is how the majority of Mexicans feel. The only ones who don't like that President Trump is sending help and trying to support Mexicans against the cartels are the narco politicians. That includes President Sheinbaum.
Okay, let's pause here for just a second. You know what this reminds me of? Remember when corporate media told you that the U.S. government was trying to help people in Iraq overthrow and fight back against Saddam Hussein? So just listen to a little bit of the language here, that the U.S. government is trying to overthrow, or not really overthrow, they said, but the U.S. government is trying to fight back against the cartels in Mexico to help the people in Mexico. So we have to remember, even when we hear this type of language, while it can easily be understood as, oh, this is something positive that the U.S. government is trying to do, we do have to keep in mind that history has shown us when the U.S. government goes into these countries and try to fight back against whatever unrest is happening there, sometimes it's unrest that the U.S. government has created, we do have to remember that what comes from that is usually regime change, meaning that the Western powers are the ones that are going to install the leader that they want after they overthrow the leader that is currently in power. And that is to get their way. That is, whether it's over resources, whether it's over, money, whatever reason. A lot of times this deals with resources or some type of alliance that they want that they're not getting from the current leader. So just pay attention to the language that is used. And also history shows us that what we have seen before in the past is that when this happens, the people in those countries tend to be worse off after this intervention from the United States than they were before. So keep that in mind. You can look at Syria also as an example.
Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum responding, saying, quote, "It's not a minor issue that a senator gave an interview to a foreign media outlet calling for intervention." Here to discuss is that Mexican Senator Lili Tellez. Senator Tellez, welcome to Fox Noticias. I'm just going to get right to it. Is Mexico a narco state?
Yes, it is. And we all Mexicans know about it. And Mexicans are afraid of the alliance between the Mexican government and the cartels that have infested our nation.
Can you explain this alliance between the president, her party, the Morena party, and the cartels?
Yes, the party has financed, has given, the cartels have given so much money to these politicians, narco politicians of Morena, to get into office, to get the power. So they protect the Mexican government protects the cartels. That is why President Sheinbaum doesn't want the strong American leadership to help Mexico defeat the cartels.
Pause here for a second. Now, the cartels in Mexico do have a lot of power. I'm not going to say that they don't. And it could be true that some people in Mexico are tired of the cartels and they want this to stop. That is possible truth there. What I want you to gather from the story is that two things can be true at the same time. It can be true that people in Mexico are tired of the cartels' reign and they want them gone. They want that like over and done. But it can also be true that the US government is using that as an opportunity to implement some type of regime change in Mexico. And that's what Fox News is not going to tell you. Also, CNN and MSNBC aren't going to tell you that either. See, they leave that piece out, that two things can be true at the same time.
And also, Sheinbaum doesn't want the rest of the world to know what is happening here in Mexico. We are on the steps to be the next Venezuela. She is aligned with Venezuela as dictator, with Cuba, and we are losing our country. They have destroyed our Republican institutions, the democratic state, and we must I think we all Mexicans want and welcome the support of the United States to assist Mexican people against the cartels that have us all in this crisis with the traffic in fentanyl and migrants.
Okay, keyword there, Venezuela. Venezuela, right? So oftentimes what the US government has done to excuse their intervention is to say that the leader is either a dictator or they'll use the drug war, right? They'll use that as a reason to take them out. And this is not to say that the cartels aren't a problem in Mexico. Yes, the cartel is a problem, but pay very close attention. She just told you that she's aligned with Venezuela, which would ultimately mean she's probably not aligned with Israel. Because remember, Marina Kochina, who won the Nobel Peace Prize, who's in Venezuela, who was calling for Donald Trump to come in and overthrow Maduro? Her statement was that she wants Venezuela to be an ally to Israel. So 9 times out of 10, this is all about getting these countries on board with this greater Israel project. And they won't stop at Venezuela. They won't stop at Mexico. I'm looking at the BRICS countries as well. Why do you think one of the reasons the U.S. is coming after Russia so harshly? It's not just the Russia-Ukraine war. They've been had issues with Russia. Coming after China. These are countries that are a part of BRICS. These countries are rising and the U.S. is sinking. So we have, a little bit of economics to play here as well. So pay attention to what is happening. Now, I would imagine that Claudia Sheinbaum does not want the U.S. government to come in and overthrow, of course, her leadership. She knows what the U.S. government wants to do. So, yes, we can admit that the cartel is a problem, but we also need to acknowledge that the U.S. government could be using that as their reasoning to overthrow the president of Mexico.
So her response to this, and I know this because her spokesperson came on our show in response to your interview, and they say, well, we just turned over 26 cartel members. We're working, we're sharing intelligence. What are they not doing? And why is she so resistant? She sort of speaks out of two sides of her mouth. We're working with you, Trump, and then she's chastising you for saying we need more help from the United States to crush the cartels.
Because she really doesn't want the help of the United States. She is lying to Mexican people, telling Mexican people that the United States will get in control of the whole country. Right. I never listened such nonsense from President Trump.
Pause. No, Claudia is right about that. That the U.S. wants to have that control. She just told you that Claudia doesn't want the help from the United States. Anyone wonder why? Why that would be? Because she knows what's going to happen. She knows what the U.S. is going to do. The U.S. for years has continued to police the world. It is not our place to tell other countries what to do. Now, some will say, well, the cartels are bringing drugs into the United States. But according to Donald Trump, the border is sealed, right? Isn't that what Donald Trump says? According to Donald Trump, the border is sealed. So the drugs shouldn't be getting in anyway. People need to push back on Donald Trump about this. This just goes to show you how people just fall for things very clearly. But yes, there are drugs that come into the United States. There are also people who make drugs right here in the United States. The cartel didn't just come about yesterday. The cartel has been around for a long time. If the US government really wanted to take out the cartel, they could have done so a long time ago. Does everybody get that? Let's go on. This is laughable to me.
We have listened is that President Trump wants to help Mexican people against the cartels. Mexican people are suffering. So what they do is very, very little. We have huge narco politicians here in the Senate, in the presidents, governors. Mexico is a very dangerous place.
Well, that brings me to
yeah, and there are places here in the U.S. that are very dangerous as well, right? So I just don't want people to buy into this propaganda. Again, yes, we know the cartels are a problem, but two things can be true at the same time. I can't listen to too much of this. It's driving me crazy. Let's go on to the next part here. Oh, my God. I do want you to see what Derek Broze said, because I want to present both sides here. Derek Broze, journalist, he's in Mexico. Derek Broze also works with journalist Whitney Webb. So let's go ahead and bring him in here. He's going to tell you a little bit here about what happened with the mayor.
This was released over the summer about the fight against the cartel in Uruapan, Michoacan. And the mayor, his name was Carlos Manzo. He was elected in the elections last year specifically for his efforts to fight and combat the cartel, because the Mexican people, despite what a lot of people out there think that, you know, Mexicans just accept the cartel and are okay with it. No, there was a lot of people, a lot of Mexicans who are sick of it and who want somebody to come in and do something about it. And they don't get a lot of help from the federal government, of course, because there is definitely, as I'm going to show you guys in a few minutes, some interactions and some connections between the feds in Mexico and the feds in the U.S. and the cartels. There's some interesting connections there.
So he just said that there are connections between the feds in Mexico and the feds in the United States. And so what that says is that if the U.S. wanted to take out the cartel, they could have done so a long time ago. Right. So let's pay close attention to these things. Let's go on a little bit more here with Derek.
People are sick of this. And this guy ran on a campaign of he's going to actually do something about it. And I will include the link to this mini documentary in the show notes, because it's really interesting to watch, especially now that he's been killed, because you can see in the comments, if you want to translate to Spanish or translate to English or just read the comments in Spanish, people are like, wow, this video is even more meaningful now that he's dead. This guy had big balls and he stood up. Well, unfortunately, he was murdered this weekend by cartel members. But, you know, we're not 100% certain who it was, but it's obvious that it was related to his fight against the cartel. So here's a few headlines I'll show you. Mayor's murder. Well, let me get to the first story. Michoacan, riots grow in Morelia after the death of Carlos Manzo. So this was interesting. First, this is the initial thing. First, he's murdered on Saturday. And then on Sunday, there were protests in Morelia because Morelia, which is where I live, is the capital of Michoacan. So they're a couple hours away in Uruapan. He's murdered. There's a big protest movement that takes place, and most of it was peaceful. It was just people protesting the streets, you know, frustrated, especially because there is a large belief that the governor of Michoacan, the state we live in, is very connected to the cartels. And so you can see here, for those watching, here's the public funeral, people carrying his caskets through the streets. After the assassination, his full name was Carlos Alberto Manzo Rodriguez. He won won the mayorship of Uruapan as an independent candidate. That's another thing, is he was an independent candidate, not with any of the parties. And he'd been calling out President Claudia Sheinbaum to fight against the organized crime. And I know there's a lot of people who have conspiracies about Claudia Sheinbaum, especially because she is of Jewish ancestry in a vast majority Catholic country, and there is a small population of very wealthy Jews in Mexico City. She is sort of part of that community. But she doesn't seem to be an outspoken Zionist, at least. But there's definitely suspicion that her and her party, the Morena party, are connected deeply to the cartels.
So that's I think is important for people to hear. This is why I wanted you to hear both sides, because Derek is in Mexico, right? Like, and yeah, Claudia Sheinbaum is wealthy. I remember when she won, that was one of the things that we pointed out, right? Like, this is not someone that came from the working class. But that's important to note. So Derek is saying that, yes, the cartel does have influence in government in Mexico. No different from the mob having influence in politics in the United States back in the day. JFK, many others, right? So we got to make these connections. So I think that's important for people to hear. So again, yes, the cartels are a problem, but the U.S. usually comes in with their own agenda when they say they're trying to help the people. Donald Trump doesn't care about the people in Mexico. Our government doesn't even care about the people here. You think they care about the people in Mexico? Come on, man. Come on. Another thing that Derek said that I do want to show you as well is he said there's no revolution or civil war happening in Mexico. And he's actually going to show you that.
Hey guys, Derek Broze here in Mexico. And you might have heard that there is a civil war or revolt going on in Mexico. There was some protest in Mexico City this weekend. You might also not know that this weekend is Buen Fin. It's like a Mexican Black Friday. And I'm currently at the mall with my dog and my lady. And we're going couch shopping because there's people everywhere shopping. So whatever garbage you're hearing from Alex Jones, whatever people, it's a lot more complex than people want to act. There's not a civil war going on. There's not an uprising. There was some big protests with some violence, which is kind of common in Mexico City. But where I'm at now in Morelia, 4 hours away from Mexico City, people are out shopping. Life is normal. I can guarantee you in Mexico City, people are out walking, shopping, living their lives. There's no civil war. There's no revolution happening. There is a lot going on, and I will be breaking it down tomorrow on my podcast, The Conscious Resistance, but don't buy the bullshit, the hype, the partisan garbage. Think critically. See you tomorrow.
Okay, so that's interesting to see, right? So sometimes, and that's the way corporate media is like, oh my God, everything's just being burned down in Mexico. And here's Derek just walking around shopping. So again, my job on this show is to try to show you the things that corporate media is not showing you, the information that they omit, and to go a little bit deeper if I can. Now, because of this, Daniel McAdams said CIA at work in Mexico with a question mark here. He is responding to this video from Open Source Intel. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has officially denounced today's Gen Z protests outside Mexico City's National Palace. One should never use violence to bring about change. Another thing that Claudia Sheinbaum said, I could show you here, but it's not in English. Another thing that she said is that this is being led by foreign forces. She said the protests are being led by foreign forces, right? That was another thing that she had said. And Derek Broze came in to comment about this here. And he said, well, she didn't say the CIA. She is blaming right-wing billionaires in Mexico and their networks using bots to promote the march. The reality is that young Mexicans are sick of cartel violence. I did a report last week on a local march where young people came out to vent their frustrations. So again, two things can be true at the same time, right? There are people who are upset, tired of the cartels, but there can also be foreign influence that is happening here. Now, we're going to get into this idea of a color revolution. Danny Haifong says, here's how to tell a protest is a color revolution before even investigating its funding sources. The protest has zero demands, becomes violent, not out of self-defense, praises Western democracy, and has zero relationship to the impoverished majority. Mexico's Gen Z protest checks all these boxes. And it just so happens it is funded by US-backed billionaires, business tycoons, and former politicians wanting to turn Mexico's government once again into a subservient vassal of Washington. Yeah, the big red flag, and this is something I learned from Brian Berlatek as well, is that there are no demands. That's a big one. I'm always suspicious when I see like these protester rallies that have no demands. Funding by US billionaires, Obviously, huge red flag. And you'll see here also from Brian Burlatek, he goes a little bit further about what happens if you search this information, if you research, is this a color revolution? Quick tip, using AI to research possible US color revolutions. Western and even some non-Western AI models are all trained on and searched through Western media. That's important. If you ask them, is the US behind the protests? AI will simply comb Western headlines, which is unanimously claimed the protests are youth-led and decentralized. Now, here's the tip. Ask that same AI telling you there's no US involvement, the same question, but in a different manner. Which pro-democracy media organizations and pro-democracy parties are supporting the current protests? It will often provide a list of organizations, parties, and sometimes even people. Then you ask which pro-democracy organizations in the West are supporting these media outlets, parties, and people, or where do they receive funding from? And often it will brag about NED, USAID, and open society funding. It was the same fundamental question asked in two different ways. Two completely contradictory answers were provided, one based on mainstream headline lies, AI combed through quickly and provided to you. The other based on actual funding and affiliations. Better still, learn how to do this research yourself and only use AI when you have a deep understanding of the topic and can determine what AI is telling you along the spectrum of simply repeating Western propaganda. This is important for people to know, right? Like, because AI isn't going to tell you, you know, what you want to hear if you're searching in this way, right? Like, and most people are going to say this, is the US behind the protests? So they're just combing Western headlines. The funding is very important. That's something that I did learn to look into. The funding, who is funding these protests. And that's how you can kind of start to see, okay, yeah, this is backed by Western money. That's important. Another thing here, Rogue Kite said, this book is so played out. Narco president. Of course, she is declaring a state of emergency. You're trying to do a regime change operation in her country, and she's not a moron. And they have a picture of her here. Homeland Security is calling her a narco president. But she knows. She knows what the US government is trying to do. Rogue Kite pointed this out as well. Notice the US, CIA, and Israel collaborating here by having US supported Nazi traitors, write anti-Semitic slurs that rally the Nazis in their base. Then Israel can say enough, though, even though she's a commie Palestinian loving monster, they'll still call her a Jewish whore. See how this works? So see, these are the things also you got to pay attention to. Scheinbaum is a liberal socialist, anti-Zionist, and in the past has worn a Palestinian keffiyeh. See, look who's backing it. Scheinbaum spent her entire life avoiding being identified as Jewish. She did not learn from history. See, oh, what do you know? The Israel has a problem with Claudia Scheinbaum. Here's the thing here. My condolences to his family and friends. Scheinbaum is another leftist being used as a pawn, bows to Islam and protects the criminals. And here she is wearing a keffiyeh. So coincidence that Israel has a problem with Claudia because she's wearing a keffiyeh and the US has a problem with Claudia? Coincidence that these protests rise up? All this funding comes out of nowhere? You got to look at both sides here. And when we look at some of the people that participated in the marches, here's one I want you guys to see. This is pretty crazy here. If you want the most concise version of what yesterday's Gen Z march in Mexico was, here it is. A rich old fascist begging Donald Trump to get rid of the government. So this is the Gen Z march.
Al gobierno de Estados Unidos, listen, Trump, listen. See, come and help us, and please come and get the shit out of Mexico. Come and get Obrador. Come and get Claudia fucking Sheinbaum.
Gracias, muchas gracias, gracias. Bueno, son muy.
So do you see that? Does she look like she's Gen Z to you? Reminds you of Marina from Venezuela, right? Come on in, Trump, come help us. So pay attention to those things. Another thing Max Blumenthal pointed out here is important. Gen Z uprisings in Mexico City and Nepal they rally around the one-piece Jolly Roger flag, much as the U.S. government-sponsored color revolutions in the 2000s did with the fist symbol. That's another thing. Look at the symbols. The one-piece the one-piece flag. There's another one-piece flag there. He's talking about Serbia, the first colored revolution. Okay, there's an article from 2008, the fist symbol. So do you see the comparisons, how they all tend to have these same symbols? I want to show you something else too. See if I can find this here. The former president. Yeah, this is a big one. This is a big one. And they aren't Gen Z. So do you see who this guy is right here? Nothing says organic youth rebellion like the former president of Mexico pretending to be a Gen Z one-piece revolutionary. Same symbol. The one-piece anime. That's the former president of Mexico. He is not Gen Z. So pay attention to what is happening here, folks. Pay attention. Again, yes, it can be true that people are tired of cartels in Mexico, but that didn't start just yesterday, right? Like that's been an issue. But also that the US government is using this as a reason to go in, fund these protests, and then ultimately, in the end, overthrow Claudia Sheinbaum and implement the leader that they want. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.